Welcome to What's in a Game. On today's show, new year, new problems, and new guys finally stepping up. How are the Denver Nuggets scrapping through a month without Nikola Jokic? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back to What's in a Game. I'm Grace Jean here with my co-host Will Jones. How are you doing today, Will, on this fine Thursday post W?
Yeah, the Nuggets are proving to be. We got our first win our best win of the season, arguably, versus the Sixers, and then we got our second best win of the season, maybe against the Celtics, depending on how you look at it. So we're in quite a time to be a Nuggets fan. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about these new players because they're giving us looks that we haven't really seen, which is why I was a little bit excited to watch this without Jokic as much as I thought it was going to hurt.
Yes, we were definitely always going to be in line to get some looks that have never even been conceived of before in a month without Jokic. To start the month, they were, to remind everybody, without Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, and Cam Johnson, 4 out of the 5 starters. Peyton Watson has basically turned himself into a makeshift starter over the last month and a half, really, ever since. Let's see, he wasn't starting when Christian went out immediately, but when AG went out, it was like, no, you got to start. And so that has definitely been a very interesting experience. I just want to shout out again our podcast's undefeated streak. The Nuggets just don't lose on Wednesdays when we pod on Thursday.
They win every Wednesday.
We pick the days of the podcast before we know the outcome of the games, guys, I promise. But here we are again getting to talk about some W's. So I feel pretty fortunate in that regard. We have so much to talk about in this episode, particularly the last 2 games, where we're going to talk about the road trip kind of more broadly as well. But we're going to try to speed run through some of the clips, especially toward the end, because as everyone knows, I'm an avid figure skating fan, and the U.S. National Championships are happening this week, and I cannot miss Ice Dance, which starts in promptly a little over 2 hours. So this will not be a 3-hour episode, just to warn everybody. Please do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Really helps us out with the algorithm as we try to grow the channel. All right. First, we're going to hit the news. I think this is pretty relevant to the overall topic of discussion with the Jokic-less Nuggets. Shams came out with a report a couple days ago saying that Jokic might be, depending on what your expectation was, coming back sooner than expected-ish, right? Some of the quotes from that interview or spot he did on ESPN talking about this is that Denver won't be rushing him back and he's still weeks away, quote unquote, but also that they're looking at the end of this month, January, as a window, which is very interesting because if I recall correctly, Jokic went out on like the 30th or the 31st. The 31st, I think, was the Raptors game. So it was right before that. So, at that point, the original kind of projection was that Jokic would be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. And you never know what can happen with that. A lot of times players just come back at the end of that period, but sometimes they are just reevaluated and then it's, their time out is lengthened. So personally, I was like, okay, 4 to 6 weeks, like maybe he'll be back in 5. I don't know. So this is like a little bit sooner than I expected. Like I definitely didn't expect him back before the end of January, personally.
Yeah.
But what was your reaction to
Oh,
this?
People have been talking about Jokic, and mostly just due to his personality of being, tough and durable, and just wanting to return earlier. And I mean, he plays
right, but you didn't know how bad the bone bruising is bad enough that they're keeping him out, at least from the original report, like 4 to 6 weeks. You're like, I don't know how, like, you don't know how quickly he heals. Like, that's like different than being durable sometimes, especially when you're like over 30 and a big and it's a joint thing. You just never know with this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's like with AG as well. You worry that these guys are so stubborn and competitive that they're going to come back and play before they're fully healed. And we're seeing that with AG and CB, I would argue. But even coming off any injury, you're going to have some. You're going to need time to get back in rhythm and get back in a game shape. If you know, because if you have a hammy or an ankle or a knee, like how much running are you doing? You know, probably not a lot. So I'm just going to trust that they know what they're doing and kind of playing through it and coming back earlier than they need to and not compromising the long term goal.
I think that Jokic is going to do whatever he wants. I don't really, even if I trusted the training staff, which like generously, that's a big
with
question
all these
mark
injuries
at
going
this
on,
point.
how much you trust them.
Well, not just because of the injuries,
Yeah.
but because of just process stuff that I ranted about on the last episode, and we don't need to get into that. Even if I did, I would just be like, Jokic is going to do whatever he wants, and it's not really about trusting the training staff. It's about like hoping to God that Jokic isn't pushing himself too much, because you kind of expect that he's probably going to come back a little bit earlier than he should. Let's see. Oh, this is the last part of that James report, is that he basically talked about how the next few weeks are like a ramp up period, which is weird because I'm like, he's rehabbed already. It's been a week. Like, what are we talking about here? So I don't know. Like, it was kind of a weird. They're like, the focus few weeks will be to like get him like comfortable running and sprinting and like doing it. I'm like, it's been literally like 9 days since this thing that you said was going to keep him out a month. So very interesting. I will say, relevant to that part of our discussion last week, if he is back, I think before January 27th, like if he's back for that game, he'll have like a game or two to spare with respect to the 65 game rule. Otherwise, like it gets super dicey because you just can't expect Jokic to play every single game down the stretch of the season anyway. So, you know, MVP is still like I don't really buy it, because I think that game's played like regardless of like the level that the guys are playing at. Although recently SGA has been trying to make it a conversation.
Yeah, that loss against the Hornets.
Not just that, like he hasn't been playing like at his, his best either. I believe that like playing the games like matters a lot at that level. So, but for all NBA, like got to get that next first team on the resume if we can. That would be nice. I wonder if he would go to All-Star even if he comes back, because that's like he'd probably rather have the time off. And that would open up another spot potentially for Jamal. I don't know. Lots of things to consider. We'll see what happens, toward the end of the month. What if he comes back before the end of January, when he does. I know Swipe, I think, is like January 22nd, which I would be seriously shocked if he came back that early. That would really surprise me. All right. But our next news item, and I'm going to use it as an opportunity to talk about how the Nuggets have been doing on their road trip as a whole. They were on the road trip from hell, right? Jokic injured, Cam Johnson injured like right before the road trip, I guess, but on a road game. Then they start, with a slide. AG and CB come back in that Brooklyn Nets game that looks like terrible. They lose on kind of a little bit of a heartbreaker against the Cavs. I would argue that Denver had no business being in that game, and the Cavs were like really trying hard to give it to them at the end, but then Denver couldn't take it. But also in that time span, they beat Toronto. They beat the Sixers. They beat the Celtics, who are in the conversation for the 1 seed in the East for like literally no reason. Like, why are the Celtics in the conversation for the 1 seed in the East right now?
Yeah, I'm confused by that.
And right. In addition to those injuries, I just want to add one that was added to the list last night. Spencer Jones had to leave last night's game against the Celtics with foot soreness. How many more offerings are the basketball gods going to take? Like, how many more do they need? Will, at this point.
Yeah. Well, apparently, do you I wasn't aware like how this injury happened, but apparently it from when he stepped on Jokic, and it's been like kind of bothering him.
I don't know. It seemed like it was something that happened in the game, but I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch the Celtics game live, so I was watching the all positions
Yeah. Well,
version of it yesterday, and I didn't know when he left the game, so there was no like single play that like stood out to me as like, oh wow, he got injured on that play. So I don't know, but he definitely left the game early, which is
the
significant for a player that's been playing a lot of minutes for us every single game basically since like mid-November.
mhm.
Uh, but yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about how Denver has been kind of responding, how the Nuggets have been responding to having no Jokic on this road trip?
Yeah, I mean, we knew. I mean, it's just funny because we were talking about Jamal and how teams are gonna defend him because he's gonna be hugely important if Jokic isn't playing. But the Sixers game, we didn't have him, so then it came down to just Pickett pulling off miracles, which I've always believed in his 3-point shot, and that was still there. I didn't know what to expect from Zeke, but here we have the Najaissance, which is what I'm calling it, the Zeke Najaissance. And yeah, it's just, I mean, Matt Moore's brought it up too, and I think it's a good point where, the teams can't scheme for the Nuggets right now without Jokic. Like, we've been very predictable in some senses with Jokic, not in a bad way, sometimes in a bad way, but like you can know what Jokic is going to do and not be able to stop it. But with this team, you have no idea who's going to go off, and different defensive looks in terms of like small ball looks and switching everything. We go to zone a little bit and then quickly go away from it because it's not been that great. Duran's making some shots. Pwat, everyone's just getting put in a position where they have to step up, and they have done it.
Make plays, like do something. Like, hey, you're on the court right now. I would say that like it's been nice to see outside of the Nets game, really, which was like weird with like guys coming back and like not looking like themselves, etc. It's been nice to see for the most part guys getting more minutes, and it's not like they're just out there getting cardio. Like
Yeah.
everyone's like doing stuff regardless of like how the game ends. Like I was really happy with the showing against the Cavs. I thought they were going to get completely like demolished in that game. Even in the Sixers game, which they won, and it was like really nice that they took it at the end. Like I was like, I'm not going to be mad about a losing outcome in this game because there was like nobody on the court that any Sixers fan recognizes outside of maybe Peyton Watson. And they were still just out there like giving it their all. Like those were good. The Cavs game and the Sixers game, especially, were like great energy games, if nothing else. But then also you get the, offensive contributions. But like the energy was like off the wall, especially for that Sixers game. You're like, oh my God, this scrambling. I haven't seen this level of defensive scrambling from this team like all season.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just happy to get these wins. And like you said, with the Cavs game, it was still close, and I liked the effort, and I was like proud of them for like keeping it competitive. It came down to it at the end. Was that the game that Pwat had the chance to win the game? I was trying to remember who that was against. In the
That was
corner
the
three,
Mavs
the
game.
Mavs, yeah. But we had a chance in the Cavs game too. We kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
Um, and
I mean, the Cavs were coming. They had a chance, and then they were like falling apart, and then we like just couldn't. It was like we were getting stops, but we couldn't score. Like that was what was happening at
yeah,
the end of the Cavs game. We were getting lots of stops at the end of that game, actually,
hmm
which was nice to see.
yeah. And we're going to talk more specifically about the Sixers and Celtics games, but they definitely developed
Yeah,
in interesting ways that I kind of expected. Like, I think like there was different phases of the Celtics game with like shooting. Like the early game was a lot of threes, like just people pulling up threes and shooting, and it was kind of like the shooting contest, which I thought we were gonna see a lot of, because if you get that type of game, there's a chance the Nuggets can win, because yeah, like Pwat or any of these guys can go off from three, even though I'm still surprised like Peyton 6 or 7 from three. Pickett was, what was he,
I
7
know.
of 11 from three? Like that's a
Against the
high
Sixers,
number of
yeah,
makes, which you kind
high
of
number of
need.
attempts, which is good to see in
Yeah.
a shorthanded situation.
And you need that, like, if you make a lot of threes, it's a great mistake eraser. So even if like you're playing sloppy or like turnovers and like not rebounding, you can get back in the game quickly with just a couple of stops. If you just hit like 3 threes in a row, which is what we kind of saw at the end of the Celtics game. So
Yeah.
it's been interesting just how we've been able to survive in just different ways.
So before we get into the specific, like player specific things, I guess, over particularly the last 2 games, I want to talk a little bit about some of the concepts that you touched on over the course of this road trip. First thing is the zone defense is still very like hit or miss with respect to the efficacy, and I think part of it is like the energy that we put into it, because you saw in that Sixers game, like we were just going zone like it was nobody's business, primarily to prevent Embiid from catching the ball, and he still got 32 points in that game. A lot of it was on putbacks because we like couldn't rebound. But they were flying around on the backside of it too. And it wasn't like the possession was zone the whole time through. It's like sometimes, okay, like we're, in late clock situations, we got to go man, that kind of thing. But I had a couple of clips from the Celtics game that just sort of illustrate, I think, why we abandoned the zone pretty quickly. More, I think, quicker now, like over the last month or so, than we were at the beginning of the season. So the first clip, if you could bring up the foul on Jalen from the first quarter of that game.
Yeah.
And I bring this up not because of the foul, because I thought it was like, oh, this would have been otherwise like a pretty good defensive possession. So this is like a good, I think, example of that. Especially, particularly, we're zoning up against a player that we know wants to drive. You could just run the clip here. And it results in Bruce Brown having to foul Jalen here. But Jalen was going to drive and like force the ball to the corner. And I think Tim Hardaway was actually in a pretty good position to be able to contest it as Derek White. So it's like, I don't know, he can make any three. So you never know. But could you go back to the previous, the first clip?
Oh,
the foul clip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bruce Brown ends up fouling Jalen by hitting his arm here, but it was going to be a steal because Tim was reading that like all the way, and that's actually not Derek White in the corner. It's in the first clip. I think it's Hugo Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And then in the second clip, so go ahead. You can just let it play out, and then I'll talk about it. In the second clip, I think Jalen just kind of reads it, so they reset because it's like a foul on the floor, and then Jalen's like, okay, they're going this zone on me. I'm just gonna kick it to the wing that they're helping off of, for this zone, and Anthony Simon gets a wide open three out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, even if he misses this three, by the way, because of like Tim Hardaway Jr. being where he is, because they're playing the gaps in this zone, Jordan Walsh gets perfect position to get an offensive rebound if Anthony happened to have missed that three. And that's been an issue for the Nuggets in the zone that they play. So this kind of just, again, goes to, I liked the first clip, even though it resulted in a foul, like you would have wanted that possession to just end in Tim Hardaway Jr. just getting that steal. I feel like when they're in zone, it doesn't feel that useful to me if they're not scrambling to cause a lot of confusion on the ball handler or forcing turnovers, because otherwise you're just creating these wide open shot opportunities, which I talked about how good the zone looked against Philly, but Philly also did get a lot of wide open shots out of it, not just the open threes from, all the, intentional overhelp, but also because of everybody's out of position, offensive rebounds in that case. So we did end up out rebounding Philly in that game, which was very impressive. Like I thought Denver was very active in the offensive glass, especially, but it was still a lot of offensive rebounds given up, a lot of them because of just like how things were playing out the zone. And so I think they still haven't really figured out like what their team's identity in a zone is, which is why I don't love the idea of relying heavily on that scheme. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's,
and we, after that play,
unless you had more to say on
I was just going to say, after that play, we went away from zone and went back to, I'm pretty sure it was right after that, like we got out of that, because that was one of the only,
you were just like, this
one
is
of the few looks I saw.
This is not really it's also like the Celtics are not the team to play zone against, because they like, just passing the ball around the perimeter to take threes. That's
but I thought
their
maybe
favorite thing to do.
that would be intentional. Like I said, like getting in kind of a shootout in a way, but they took more deep
Yeah, but you don't
threes.
want. But when you're playing Boston, you want to limit their 3-point
Yeah.
attempts. Like that's been true for the last 4 years, ever since
And
Missoula took over as like offensive coordinator before he was the head coach.
they took a lot of threes in the first quarter, and it went down like in the second and the third. The volume went way down, which was really interesting. And then the threes that they were taking were like really deep. Because I think we were trying
Yes.
pretty hard on like ball pressure and stuff like to mix results, but the effort was there.
Yeah. I definitely. This was like the issues even in the zone one. It's not really like effort that I'm critiquing. It's more like I'm not sure that they know like what it is that they're trying to execute. Like the goal that of this possession. Like what's the goal of this possession? Is it for a particular player to shoot a shot? Wide open corner threes by like a Boston Celtic where like all of like that's like what they draft for is like can you hit a wide open corner three? Um is it forcing a turnover? Is it, forcing a tough shot? Like that's the thing I still critique when it comes to how Denver has been playing out this scheme. And I would love, oh my gosh, my dream would be to interview Jared Dudley on what his goal for this defense is because I've been asking this question since like the second week of the season. Right.
Yeah.
Um okay. Next, bullet point here, just like on an overall note, because we won't be talking about these players as much when we get into the guys that have stepped up. CB and AG are back since the Nets game. They both don't look great athletically, but AG obviously a way better player than Christian Brown is like at this stage in his career. So he's still been very effective offensively. He's had his defensive moments, but you can see like the athleticism is still like I don't know that it's not just like a trusting himself, trusting the hamstring, all that stuff. It's also like okay, like the lift is not like quite there. There's a lot of like he gets blocked on like shot on like layups and like dunk attempts. So you're like, oh damn, like that's just not there. CB in particular, I think has looked really rough, and we actually will talk about him in some further clips, so I won't go into him too much. But I wanted to play this clip of a Derek White dunk. If you could bring up the D White dunk. This possession was actually excellent defense by Zeke Nnaji on the perimeter against Anthony Simons. But AG just kind of loses Derek White there, and then when he closes out, just gives him like all of that room to drive away from the help.
Yeah.
And AG was kind of generally getting cooked off the dribble by Peyton Pritchard in this game, which you don't love to see. Uh, so like the perimeter switchability has not really been there, and that was kind of a thing even before the injury. And we know like AG has had kind of slow like defensive starts to the last now 2 seasons at least. Can't remember really 23-24 because the team defense was so good. It was hard to tell, but that might be part of the reason why KCP was getting more of the all defense buzz than AG was starting early in that season. We know AG was like excellent by the time the season ended on that end of the floor, but it was more like KCP who was really locking things down on the perimeter, right? And so that's definitely something to consider is that like, is this just injury stuff, slow season start stuff, or is it just like, well, AG, he's I believe he's 30 now and or turning 30. Is this just like where he is at this stage in his career, and what does that mean for how we should be using him defensively? I think that's going to be an interesting thing to monitor as the season goes on.
Yeah, and I mean on that play, closing out on anyone like who's gonna attack the closeout is really tough to defend. And when you are coming off a hammy
Yeah.
injury, it's going to be hard to have the lateral quickness
Yeah,
to
for
stop
sure.
it.
For sure.
So it's like, yeah, he was getting beat off the dribble a lot last night, and but thankfully he did make some shots. Like I was wondering how his shot was going to
Yeah.
look come back. He made some tough ones, which was great to see. And CB hit a three in the corner too, but definitely the lift on like he had some layups where just like I'm like CB is one of
Yeah.
the like most explosive jumpers in on the Nuggets for sure, and just wasn't there last night.
And he's getting blocked by the rim on like a transition
Yeah,
attempt. You're like, what the hell is
that was
going on
definitely
here?
weird to see, but hopefully it's just
Obviously,
rust.
that ankle was way worse than they made us think when they let Christian go back into that game against the Clippers in the second half, and he couldn't hang for like 50 seconds. Um, I'm going to keep bringing that up because that decision and that whatever the process was to test his ankle and then let him go back into that game continues to look worse and worse. Not because it necessarily made it worse, but because it was clearly so bad that he shouldn't have gone back in that game like already. I want to shout out Tim Hardaway Jr. because he has been a remarkably consistent shooter. We have our group chats where we talk about what's going on in the games live, and he had that poor shooting game. I believe it was against the Nets. He went like 1 of 9 or something in that game. And then, someone was like, "Oh, is this just it for Tim Hardaway Jr.?" And like the good THJ part of the season anyways, is he just done? And then obviously he has 2 great games after that against the Sixers and the Celtics. Or not the Sixers, because he didn't play that game, but the game against the Celtics. Tim has made at least 2 threes in 28 out of 36 games that he's played with Denver. I think Denver has played 37 games. He's played all but 1. And a large part of that is the volume, which I applaud because that is his job as the volume shooter on this team. Tim Hardaway Jr. has not attempted fewer than 5 threes. The number of games that he's attempted fewer than 5 threes is 6 out of 36 games. So he is getting the shots up and he is making them at a very respectable clip almost every single game, which is awesome for just a guy that you have all off the bench who's been playing elevated minutes in a time when the team is just needing that from him. And I wanted to shout that out because we're not going to get into the clips because it does become redundant at times when it's just like, and he made a 3 and another 3 and another 3. But it's so important for this team, especially in this stretch when they're like, we are just trying to scrap out these close games and every point matters. And every 3 feels huge, especially when it's coming off the bench. Light chemistry says THJ has been if you could bring that comment back up because I have seen this. But they said the THJ was the best signing the front office made this offseason. He's been so good. I've heard the sentiment that Tim Hardaway Jr. is the best free agent signing of the summer, and I don't think that that's
the whole
a
NBA.
crazy thing to say, given the contract, what you're getting from him for the contract. Or what, particularly Denver, because they're getting from him what they have not had in, I don't know, several years. Like, when's the last time they had a high volume 3-point shooter, particularly off the bench?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, he has just added that explosive element to our offense. Like, how many runs has Tim Hardaway Jr. been a part of where he makes 2 or 3 threes just in the span of 2 minutes? Right?
Yeah. And adding more shooting was I think a priority of the team, and or to just develop it and just get more from the guys we already had, but to just get THJ, which that's what we were thinking when we got him, was, I know it was a minimum. People were wondering how he was going to be, but the shooting's been as good as you could ever ask for.
Yeah. Yeah, but just then as the comment that you just had there brought up, Tim Hardaway Jr. did approach the Nuggets. I've heard that's been reported from multiple outlets at this point, and that's awesome. I'm glad Tim Hardaway Jr. wanted to come here. Viekoslav said, I was totally down on the THJ signing. So glad I was proved wrong. I think it was totally fair to be very skeptical. Not very skeptical, but skeptical of that signing in terms of how important is he actually going to be? Is he going to be such a coach's favorite that he just plays too much? And what's the defense going to look like? All this stuff. And that's still fair to be skeptical about how that's going to be going forward. But in terms of his contribution to this team in the regular season has been incontrovertible. You cannot argue what he's meant to the team to this point. You guys are lucky THJ was so streaky at Dallas. I know that, and that's why I was like, this is a great signing as a dude off the bench, and he was off the bench in Dallas, and until they needed him to start a lot, which Denver has also needed him to start a lot. Though it's nice to have some of our other horses back so that his minutes can go down a little bit. But look, it was at the beginning of the season, it's like, well, he's so consistent because he's getting all these awesome wide open shots from Jokic, but he's also creating like a lot. Like he's hitting these pull up threes. Um, sometimes in like late clock ISO situations, he's hitting things off of pin downs. He's also hitting obviously his catch and shoot threes. He has that transition leaner that he likes to go to, that stop and pop three that is very reminiscent of former Nugget KCP. Yeah, and this dude is just like completely unafraid to fire. And at some point, that's going to get really annoying. Like perhaps maybe during the Nets game, although that was like a game where like nobody brought energy, and so I was not going to fault Tim Hardaway Jr. for trying to get us points. But for now, it's just been, again, like the consistency is what's very remarkable to me, which is why I wanted to share some of those numbers with you guys. Last thing, and this was just an observation as I was going through the rewatch of last night's game, because I was definitely box score watching, like while the game was going on, and I didn't understand how we went up from up 11 to like, why is this a 3-point game? Like we're up 11 and like 2 minutes left. It's like, why is this a 3-point game now? And Boston, this is like a combination of like Denver stuff and Boston stuff. First of all, Denver did the thing again where like kind of a near collapse in terms of like with the defense in the last 2 minutes. They allowed 16 points in just like 2 minutes and 10 seconds, which was very just annoying. Like Denver or Boston was probably going to be capped at like maybe 104 points, and then they ended up with like 110. And that was annoying, but there were no specific. That's not true. There are a couple of instances at the end of that game where Denver miss, Boston is like racing down the floor to create a 5-on-4, like at worst for them, and get an open three. Like they're just like passing the ball around the perimeter and just jacking up threes, and that's what you have to do against a team when you're down double digits in the last 2 minutes of games. To be fair, like you're not going to win that game with twos. And one of them resulted in a Jordan Walsh. There was an overhelp situation where Zeke like completely abandons Jordan Walsh, and he airballed a corner, like butt naked corner three. But then the Celtics hit the putback, and that's kind of what made it like an 8-point game in the last minute, which was like annoying because they got the putback. That was more like, why are we not defending the 3-point line right now? Like that's literally the only thing that matters when you're up double digits in the last like 90 seconds, right? Is like guarding the 3-point line and not giving up and ones. So that was like a very spacey moment. The other one was the Hugo Gonzalez 3 that came off of like a transition situation, like what I'm describing. So the Celtics half of this, I want to talk a little bit about, because they made the game absolutely excruciating at the end, like to watch. It was very like annoying. And I think this is a preview of what they're going to do when they are comfortably down, which they were comfortably down. Like Denver was up, like I said, double digits in the last 2 minutes of this game. Foul and jack up threes. Just be like, even if they make both free throws, we're going to take a three. Hopefully we make it. Right. And they did that for the last, I would say 70 or 80 seconds of this game, where they were just immediately fouling, or like near immediately fouling, hoping you miss a free throw, but it doesn't matter if you miss a free throw, because even if you make both, they're going to take a three. I will say though, a note on the overall defense for Denver in that game, Boston finishing with just 38 3-point attempts. We just talked about this with like when you're playing Boston, limiting the 3-point attempts is like the most important thing about that game. Like your offense doesn't matter, your defense otherwise almost doesn't matter. But if you can limit their 3-point attempts, just get them out of what they do. 4 of those threes, by the way, were in that last 2 minute span where they're just like chucking. That was a triumph. And I will say the Celtics average actually only 43 attempts per game this season, which is down from the 48 that they were at last year to like lead the league by some margin. And I think part of that is Tatum and like his like propensity for taking pull-up threes for no reason. But Denver actually outpaced their season average attempts in that game with 44. So to your point about Denver trying to kind of make it a shootout, at least on their end, They're like, we want to outpace you. Like, we want to limit your threes, and we are going to try to, like get some shooting luck, get some shooting variance in our favor in this game. And I think that was really important and impressive. Particularly limiting Boston's 3-point attempts was impressive, but it's important for Denver over the next, several weeks to try to win the margins where they can, because they are going to largely be at talent disadvantages against most teams they play. Boston is like borderline because of like missing Tatum and like having like Kata as like their best big. Hurricane says, should we talk about how Boston was the real big win to celebrate without Jokic? We already knew that Philly was a loser town and Embiid was a bum, but Boston has championship pedigree. Yes. But to be fair, like Philly, it is a loser town, but we had no players. Oh my gosh. The dog just ran in.
The dog just scared Grace.
Scared the crap out of me.
For the listeners.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, there's the dog.
Say hi, Benji. Now you want to escape. Okay. Get out of here. Go.
Yeah, I'll say, we didn't have the starters in the Philly at all. Like no AG, no CV, so many people out, and like you just don't expect to win. But it was good to rest them for that, because you do have the chance to win, because Philly is such a loser town. But I did think Boston was going to play so much better than they did because of their seeding, and people have been talking about Boston like they're a legit title contender if Tatum comes back, which I don't think is going to happen. I don't think he's going to come back. But I
think he wants to.
Yeah, he does.
And like he could. I didn't think that Tatum would come back because I thought that Boston would be worse right now and not give him a reason to come back like a little bit early. Because I think based on like the rehab timeline for an Achilles, he could come back like realistically before the end of the season. But I don't think it would have made sense for him to if they were like a play-in team or worse, which is what I thought was going to happen. But the East has out-Easted itself and let the Boston Celtics get to like near the top of the conference again. So maybe Tatum does come back, but I don't know how he's going to look, and that'll be like relearning a new dynamic. I mean, could the Celtics win the East? Yeah, like, right? Not just like in a regular season, but like in a playoff context, like, yeah,
Yeah.
Just cause. So I don't think it's that crazy. All right, are you ready to jump into really long clip time?
Yes.
Because we have so much to go over.
I don't know how much you do want to talk about this, but we did have a chat question really quick. Okay. And I feel like it is an interesting one, and it was something I saw a lot last night being discussed, and I do wonder your thoughts on it. But we have HDNZS 6230 says, y'all think they're going to trade Cam and maybe Zeke and put Pwat in the starting lineup?
We can talk about no. I don't think that they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to trade Cam Johnson before the end of the season. And we can talk about what it could look like if they do decide to move on from Cam to make room for Peyton, not just financially, but also just within the get him enough minutes and make Peyton a starter, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I don't think they're going to do that. I do think that they're going to look to potentially move off of Zeke this trade deadline. I wouldn't be shocked if I know Hurricane. I know how you feel about Cam Johnson. I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to trade Peyton Watson at the deadline. And it's fun. It's interesting. We're going to talk about it because Peyton has been playing absolutely out of his mind over the last few weeks. I've started to warm to the idea of trading Peyton more over the last few weeks than I had before. And not because I don't think that Denver could retain him, because I think that restricted free agency is a very powerful tool for teams that want to use it. I don't know what Denver's thinking in that regard right now. But we'll talk about it when we get to the Peyton Watson segment of the show here. All right, let's start with Zeke Nnaji, though, because I think he's been the real like breakout hero of more than the last two games, more like the last basically ever since Jokic went out. I think that Zeke has been playing like remarkably well given the expectation that has been built up of him based on his own play over the last few years. We'll get into Peyton as a starter. We'll get into that as well, Vyacheslav, when we get to the Peyton Watson section. But let's talk about Zeke Nnaji making absolutely, like, the only word that you can use is unbelievable plays in the last few games. Well, if you could bring up the long video and go to the 2-minute mark. This was very frustrating for me because NBA play-by-play does not have like any video clips from the Sixers game. So I was scouring a variety of sources to try and scrape clips from the most incredible game ever here, including this insane drive and finish from Zeke Nnaji, a little kind of, I guess that's like a scoop layup-ish, right? Drives through 3 guys and that he's clearly bigger than and is able to finish at the rim. And once and one, when you're listening to the broadcast, he very much like yells like very audibly at this moment, like this was a big play for him. He also had this big drive in transition that was similar to that, but it's a reverse layup, which was insane. I wanted to know if those drives from the I would say the last couple, because I think he had one against the Celtics too. Do they make you trust Zeke Nnaji dribbling the ball more, particularly in the open floor, like transition?
These plays?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I need to see more. I need to see more of this happening from Zeke before I can fully trust. I feel like there's been so many times throughout Zeke's time with the Nuggets where he has a decent game and then everyone's like, oh, Zeke is really good. See, we should just be playing him. And then we just go back to the same old thing. And I think that there is a wise kind of idea where you probably need to see about like 5 to 10 games of something before you start believing in it.
I was very low.
Yeah. Or like in a row, let's say. Like you shouldn't like change your opinion off one game. Like give it at least. Like if Zeke was doing this 5 games in a row consistently. But so I'm just reserving my thoughts, but I'm super happy for Zeke that he's able to do more and attack and finish and dunk and get blocks. He should be able to be a more capable defender because he's like big and can move pretty smoothly for the most part. It's just, yeah, his handle has been weird.
Yeah, like that possession against Anthony that we had earlier.
Yeah. So
I will say the drives were significantly less successful versus Boston. I was trying to think of the one I was thinking of, but there were 3, and I think all 3 of them got blocked, including one in transition. Although I think at least one of those blocks did result in like a free throws. So he's getting fouled. I will say though, like particularly Celtics and Sixers, tiny teams, like very tiny teams. But like Zeke hasn't necessarily done well against tiny teams in the past outside of his like January redemption stretches that he seems to have every year. So it was good to just see him like, okay, this is what you should at least be able to do, given like what you, given the skills that you have, is like be bigger than these tiny players and like impact the game like it, right? He had a clutch dunk versus Boston, if you could bring that one up. Actually, this one's the one where he yells very audibly on the broadcast after it. I thought this was
Jamal getting kind of blitz and no one's recovering to Zeke. And gets the amazing dunk. And Derek White, he was like weirdly asleep in this game on defense. Like just being out of position.
And often, like I feel like, it's not usually the case with Derek White. And I will say, obviously this year is different because he's taking on a different kind of offensive burden. His defense seems to be being impacted by the offense. Mm-hmm. Outside of, like I said, I think he blocked Zeke multiple times in this game, actually. He otherwise didn't seem to make an impact, and usually you're like watching the Celtics, you're like, oh my God, Derek White, he's kind of has his hands in like every good play, it seems like. But not so much now that he's had to like be more involved almost. It's interesting, right? Um, and last night I don't think he was very impactful. I think he was maybe a game worse, -14 actually. Let me double check that. Let's see. Versus Philly also, and I think he made some versus Boston. He was making his threes above the break and corner threes. Definitely made some corner threes against Boston. He was involved in like help defense on the final possession against Tyrese Maxey, which we don't have a clip of again because of NBA play-by-play, but that would have been really nice to show. And when Maxey basically gets through two perimeter guys in Peyton Watson and Jalen Pickett on that final shot, and then Zeke's like, oh my gosh, there's like no time on the clock. I gotta leave my man and just like get a hand up and maybe get a fingertip on it, maybe try to block it. I don't know. But I think Zeke impacted that floater of Tyrese Maxey's. I think he got off a little bit too quick, and that's why it didn't go in. So that was another great high leverage moment from Zeke. And then versus Boston, let's bring up the Jaylen Brown on an island. I actually stole this clip from friend of the show, Matt Brooks, who was, doing good live tweeting during this game. So that was a good reference point. Just stays with Jalen very easily. Jalen can't get past him because of Zeke being quick on his feet and can't bully him because of Zeke's size. So that's like an ideal, matchup for Jaylen Brown. I think AG, Matt Brooks pointed out that AG also had a couple good possessions on Jaylen Brown. And I'm just thinking back to a couple seasons ago when it was the season where we beat the Celtics twice. In that season, we were the only team to do so, or at least sweep the Celtics. I think the Hawks beat them twice, but they also got beaten twice. And in those games, we had AG matched up on Jaylen Brown and KCP on Tatum, and I was like, the only reason there was like a thing that Boston Celtics fans were complaining about because they're like, the only reason that AG can guard Jaylen Brown is because Tatum lets KCP guard him, even though he's like a significantly smaller player, et cetera, et cetera. But again, like AG is just such a good matchup against Jaylen Brown because he's such a power wing in that way. And you can tell just from like looking at him, that dude is dense. I wasn't talking about mentally, but we don't have to go there. I think he's a certified genius or something. He plays chess. Didn't you hear? Let's go to the block on the Derek White 3. This was huge. And Will, you watched this game live, right?
Yes.
Okay, so play this clip and then tell me what the hell you were thinking in this moment.
I thought, another open 3, maybe he'll miss it because Derek White's been kind of sucking lately and missing shots, but I just wasn't expecting this because, look how far away Zeke is. I mean,
look at this recovery.
Just didn't expect.
And he's got a lot, like a very, very positive wingspan.
Yeah,
but he's just sometimes like late on this stuff. And I think if he had obviously, if like one more split second had happened before he recognized that Derek White was just flaring out. I think part of it was, I think Zeke just recognized that because I don't see Christian necessarily communicating that in time in that moment. So this was just another great defensive, great defensive like instincts and playmaking from Zeke here too. CB didn't go over the screen. I mean, yeah, but to be fair, like the whole thing with the Celtics here is they were trying to ghost this and confuse the defense, and they definitely did that. So Zeke just saved a broken defensive possession here. Let's go to the block on Jalen, another one in a high leverage moment toward the end of the game. So Denver already has a 10-point lead here, but 3 minutes left, and anything can happen. And boom.
What is Jaylen Brown thinking? He thinks he can take Zeke in the paint? No way.
It's so nice having rim protection. Like, forget.
I wonder if Zeke got hit on this play because he kind of stayed behind, but because I don't think he was celebrating. But anyway, that's just a random detail. But I mean, the block before this happened in a big sequence where we hit a couple of threes and then we got that block and we just kept getting stops and making threes. And just Zeke kept doing it. And the defense really was kind of the story in this last, like from that 5 minute mark until when the Celtics were kind of like getting back in the game, like you detailed earlier. But like for that little stretch to get this 10-point lead, it was like a lot of hustle, just hustle plays and great shot making. And that's kind of all we needed. Like we stayed in the game as much as we could, but and then just clutch, put the clutch win. And we had some chats earlier talking about, are the Nuggets improving from the clutch? And it's hard to know because we're not like playing with Jokic and he's going to be the guy who's going to be in the clutch.
No,
And I don't think
because the issue is the defense, and that's still like, I don't know what's going to happen in these clutch defensive possessions.
the Zeke wins.
I
That's
do
a
have
good
a
word.
theory about that, though. Let me see if that's later in the show. We're going to talk about it. Like a very key way I think the Denver's defense has changed from the last 2 seasons. Yeah, Zeke has been giving us elite rim protection over, over this last stretch. And he had, even in 23-24 was a terrible Zeke Nnaji season. And he was still really good at rim protection, both contesting shots and blocking them in that season, which is part of the reason, like the bench, which was like, that tells you how bad their offense was. They had great defense. Part of the reason the team defense was so good that season, that they were top 10. But the offense was so bad, like it didn't matter. And so that was maybe like the worst bench season since I've been watching the team, which is probably the worst bench season of the Jokic era, because it seems like it had just been getting worse and worse until this year. Let's see. Okay, I want to bring up this hustle possession. So go to the Derek White block. This was one where he actually gets blocked by Derek White and is in danger of Derek White just kind of taking it, or the ball kind of going off of so the ball was going to go off of him out of bounds, and he didn't actually save it because it ended up going off of, no, it did. He saved it because it went off of is that Luka Garza? He throws it off of at the end there.
Yeah.
And then I don't think that Derek, I keep calling Denver Derek, and I don't know where that's coming from. That Denver scored on this possession, but they did get the ball back. And I just thought that was a really nice, hustle play. He was just like, oh shoot, what can I do in this situation? And he's been playing really hard, like he always does.
He was
tenacious Zeke.
He was exhausted at the end of that game. Like he missed those free throws, like because he was just dying and wheezing. But I was there for it. I was there.
He's also not a great free throw shooter, so I was just kind of like, I don't know what's gonna happen here. He got subbed out for Jalen Pickett late too, for that exact reason. DA was just like, let's just get someone who can make free throws in here. But then everybody was splitting their free throws.
Yeah.
Even Jamal at the end.
Pwat had the turnovers at the end towards the game too, and was fouling from 3 and stuff like that. It was a little bit rough getting them back in the game, but yeah.
So Zeke Nnaji has been doing all of this at the 5 recently, right? And there's been a lot of discussion and debate about whether playing Zeke at the 5 the last few years has been like stunting his development because it's not his natural position, even though he played 5 in college. And like, it's like, well, this is what Denver needs right now. Everybody plays a little bit out of position sometimes, et cetera, et cetera. But Zeke has been playing like pretty much nothing but the 5 over the last few games, especially since Val went out, who's the other one that I forgot to mention was out during this on the first game of this road trip against Toronto. Or second game of the road trip. What was the first game? I don't even know. Anyway, yeah, so he's been doing all of this great stuff at the 5, and you're like, okay, that sort of begs the question, like, why couldn't you do this stuff earlier at the same position? Whenever you were playing backup 5 and getting a relative amount of run there, because that's like, those were your minutes when Jokic was off the floor, right? So what do you think about that idea?
Repeat again. I had to like get some people out of the chat who are being crazy.
Just the
But
fact that like there's been a discussion over the last year. It's like Zeke is a 4, or like some people think he's a 2. Shout out Ray Martinelli. Ray
Zeke is a
Martinelli
2.
on yes,
Yeah.
RX Smart on
Yeah.
Twitter. But a lot of people are like, Zeke is a 4. He shouldn't play him at the 5, and like blaming Malone for playing him at the 5. It's like, well, right now he's playing the 5, and he's playing well,
Yeah.
right?
I don't think it's a move to solidly bring him back at the 5. I mean, we do have this forward issue where we don't have a ton of depth there. And if Duran, like he hit big three, we'll talk about him later, but he did hit some big threes in this game, but
He
didn't
actually had limited
close.
minutes in this game because they were like, we like Zeke at the 5 better, so we're going to play Zeke at the 5 even more, right? So it's like, clearly the difference is not the position that he's playing. He's playing better, right?
Mm-hmm. I just, yeah, like in general, he is just playing better. And like in this weird scenario where we have Val and Jokic out, don't have any like true centers to put him with. So he can play this small ball style at center, which I think is just working with like these smaller kind of weak East teams like we're seeing with the Celtics. And yeah, like some of the defensive rebounding was an issue with Kata last night, but yeah, we were able to overcome it. And Zeke was able to be that rim protector, which he can just do in a vacuum, regardless of like if he's playing 4 or 5. But I don't think it's like a signal to like be playing him at the 5 more. I would still try to keep him at the 4, especially because like he's been making some threes too.
I mean, you can make 3s at the 5 too.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little easier, like just playing with Jokic, like let's say for example.
Sure. I guess it's like, obviously, I don't think the ideal position is the 5, but I think that blaming the position he was playing for how poorly it looked the last 2 years is belied by his more recent performances that are like, even last night, like the Sixers game was insane, like truly like insane. Like you were like, this is a completely different player, right? With those drives, and he's making every 3 and all that stuff. Last night he had 12 points in like a lot of minutes. So it wasn't like an insane game. He was just like doing his job, you know? And that's something that we haven't really seen from him over the last couple of years. So I want to shout all this stuff out to be like, this is positive. Like he has made, at least in the last couple of games, even compared to Zeke's other sort of January redemption stretches, he hasn't played like this, right? And so I would hope that it continues, regardless of what Denver, wants to do with him. But obviously, it's better for us if he plays well, whether they want to keep him or not, right? Just because of the contract. So shout out to Zeke and the Zeke Nnaji. Let's move on to the MVPs of the game against the Sixers. Peyton Watson and Jalen Pickett. I want to talk about Pickett first because it's going to be obviously like a shorter discussion here. Jalen Pickett had 4 step back 3s over Embiid out of pick and roll against the Sixers. Will, if you could bring up the one step back 3 clip that we have here. This was like the big one that the NBA Twitter page. I think it's either like Pickett step back 3s or just step back 3.
Oh, okay. I have to pull up this clip because we don't
Jalen
have
Pickett
the actual
was clip. We don't? No. Yeah. I this is in the folder. Jalen Pickett was hitting just ISO 3s whenever they would switch Embiid onto him out on the perimeter, and just completely killed the Sixers' ability to switch in this game. Now, there are other ways to attack switches. Like I know they tried a couple times to like post Duran up or something. But that obviously was not going to be quite as like potent in terms of like breaking the Sixers' ability to switch. But Jalen Pickett did this like 3 times, just in terms of like the ISO ones. And then he had another one when Embiid was in like a deep drop. And it forced the Sixers to bring Embiid into like much higher drop coverage out of pick and roll, which then gave Denver some opportunities to try to carve them up because Pickett was really good at making those pocket passes to the roller. The one note I will have on Jalen Pickett and his game, and I do think like he was unequivocally the best player on the floor. And the next one was not Tyrese Maxey. I really thought it was VJ Edgecombe. Tyrese Maxey had a lot of points, but I thought VJ was making plays on just both sides of the ball, just like backbreaking type stuff to Denver in that game. And Jalen Pickett was forcing the Sixers to completely change their defensive coverage, whereas nobody on the Sixers was taking Denver out of what they wanted to do, which was like this zone scheme and like fronting Embiid and doing all that stuff, right? What I will say though about Jalen Pickett is the booty ball is not working. Okay. It's a win for the defense every time he turns away from the basket. Sometimes when he's close to the basket, he's like trying to post up. Sometimes he's doing it from like near half court in transition and just kind of like stalling out a play. But even in this game, you started to see it toward the end. I don't know if it was like he's getting tired, so he's going to something that he's more comfortable with the booty ball. But he's just too small and like easy to stuff in that situation, particularly when he's intentionally turning like a blind eye to the defense. And so I bring this up to say Pickett is most effective when he's facing up and shooting threes, which is not like why he was drafted kind of thing, where it's like, this is great, right? But it doesn't necessarily change my idea of like the of like Jalen as like why Jalen was drafted like where he was and that kind of thing. Because it's like, well, he's playing well now because he's a completely different player. Like when he plays like a completely different player than what he was doing when he was drafted, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And we saw a little bit of that even in the Celtics game. He tried the booty ball a little bit in that one too. Didn't have nearly as much usage in that game with everybody or almost everybody back. Versus Boston, but I did want to shout him out for that Sixers game because we absolutely don't win it without him, right? But it's just kind of the idea of, so I've seen this take a lot that like Calvin Booth was right and like all that stuff, and I'm like, was Calvin Booth right about Pickett just playing well when he's a completely different player than Calvin Booth said he was going to be? And I know you talked about you've always believed in Pickett's 3-point shot. The actual like shot itself like never looked bad to me, but it was his willingness to take it, right? And that Sixers game is really the first time that we've seen him not hesitate. It wasn't just the ISO step backs, it was the catch and shoots and that kind of thing. And we're starting to see that a little bit more consistently, but there are still moments where it's like, nope, he wants to like pump fake and try to back down and like, kind of do too much kind of situation too.
Yeah, I just felt like whenever he was like decisive and quick with the shot,
yeah,
it was. I mean, not like it goes in 100% of the time when he does this, but
it feels like it does when he is decisive,
yeah.
Right? I agree with that.
Like since the preseason, where I saw this in pockets, I was like, dang, like I think, and even like towards the end of last season, at times, I just started getting really confident in his three, and I was like, I didn't know why we weren't seeing it more. And I'm glad that he has a license to just not really care. Like he doesn't have any reason to hesitate for the most part now because of like the personnel and the situation we're in. But also like, I think he's a good passer too. And I was always in favor of booty ball if he was using it to like assist. Like if he was down in the post, he's got to use it because he's like a thicker, small guy. When he tries to score out of that, it's not going to go very well. And we did see that because he's getting swarmed and all that. But when he like makes reads out of it, I like that, but I'm not like wanting him to score a bunch that way. So
right, yeah. And also like he makes reads out of it, but it doesn't matter if the reads aren't there. So if he's being guarded in like one-on-one coverage in that situation, and then everybody else is covered, then it kind of doesn't matter. If that makes sense? Because he's like you said, he's like a thicker guy, but he's not big enough to like move guys enough to like force a second defender, for example, in a booty ball situation. I think when he's like, he is strong. And I think that again, like were like, I'm gonna say like if he were like more of a downhill player, and I don't mean like fast, I just mean like playing downhill and like off of movement with his strength, I think he could leverage that to be able to create those reads that he could then make and create those open shot opportunities for other guys. But I think for right now, especially like we're starting to see more, and we saw it in the Sixers game, like the defenders start to get a little bit more comfortable with it and like stop it. And like it's just one of those things like the more you play, the higher up you go on the scouting report because like they have film on you kind of thing. Um yeah, so I'm just still very uh like ambivalent about Jalen Pickett as a player, but obviously he feels like, or supposedly fills a need that Denver has right now. I talked about how over this stretch without Jokic, like Denver would absolutely need Jalen Pickett to step up some because Jamal cannot do all of the on-ball creation for this team without getting completely burnt out. And in the Celtics game was a lot of Jamal creating all of the shots for Denver.
So many
and we're going to
assists.
talk about that too. Glad the refs called the foul on JB's push off on Pwat. Yes, that was the offensive foul call. We're going to talk about Peyton Watson next and some of his offense and some of his defense, especially versus Boston. First thing about Peyton is that he went so deep in his bag as a scorer, both versus Philly and Boston. And I know he scored more points in Boston. I think was that the game he was 6 or 7 from 3, right? I thought that his scoring versatility, I think, was even on more display versus Philly. Would you agree with that?
Peyton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that versatility. First, let's see here. Let's go to the Pwat self-creation.
All right.
He was Denver was in desperate need of somebody because Pickett was incredible, but he couldn't literally create every skill shot for Denver. And there were some possessions where we just needed Pwat to create something. So he does a little bit of pick and roll with Zeke here. And gets a little crafty in the lane, gets around Joel, and this is kind of like a pretty lazy drop possession, I would say, from Embiid. And you could say a lot of drop possessions are lazy, but I thought he was just kind of like, okay, I'll give you the angle to go middle here, which is fine when you have help, but no Sixers were there to help, and then Peyton is able to finish, which does not always happen, especially with this floater. Right, I've complained so much about this floater this season, and this one finally went in.
That's a tough one. It's like hitting the floater across his body, going the other direction, away from the hoop. And yeah,
definitely.
And man, I mean, I don't want to.
This is like a Jamal shot.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it, but yeah, Embiid doesn't look like himself.
Yeah,
because damn,
or he does,
yeah.
Okay, if you could go to the long video and jump to the minute 55 mark, I believe. So this was another Peyton Watson self-creation on a drive. Like they could not stop him on these drives. We had a comment on the screen a couple seconds ago about that. He was either getting fouled or getting all the way to the basket on like
what mark did you say?
155.
Oh, 155. One sec, here it is.
Oh, that was the crazy Zeke shot. Hunter Tyson made plays, and this was such an insane game. Okay.
This was
okay, I think it might be after this one. So this is the Zeke drive.
That was the
one. Okay, maybe minute 50. Maybe I was a little early. So this one is Bruce.
I don't see it around here.
This game is so crazy. That's weird. I thought it was right around the Zeke one.
Well, that was a sick one from Pickett.
I know. Were there no? That's crazy because there
I
were
don't
so
see
many
it.
Peyton Watson drives in that video. Try earlier then.
Is it this one?
Try 145. Oh no, but that one works too. So another Peyton Watson isolation. So this is okay. So this is the Bruce 3 that he creates by driving again on who was even guarding Peyton on that possession? Is that Barlow or Jared McCain, who we definitely picked on a lot in that game? Jared McCain, he has not had nearly the same pop, I would say, or like sheen this season as he did in his rookie year, at least like the very beginning of his rookie year. He looked like prime Paul George out there. This against Philly because I just thought he was so versatile as a scorer.
Which is so
Getting like all the way
ironic.
to the rim, getting fouled, creating mid-range shots, creating ISO threes, catch and shoots, stuff off. Like the catch and shoot threes were really the only good off-ball stuff, which is maybe something to kind of monitor. But yeah, prime Paul George out there was really good on defense, like the end of the game. Not so much like throughout, because I do think that he was like trying to like balance the two things. But in that game, we just needed somebody else like to go along for the ride with Jalen Pickett in terms of creating for both himself and others. And Peyton was that guy, right? Can't really complain about the shot selection either, where it was just like somebody needs to do something, okay? Because we are like, I think they were starting Hunter Tyson in that game. Am I incorrect in that recollection?
Hmm.
If not, we were pretty close to closing with Hunter Tyson.
Hmm.
Where the game went to overtime. He did have some dumb turnovers that I wanna point out here. Especially versus Boston. He kind of like just kind of handed the ball to Peyton Pritchard on one possession, which was like I didn't even know what like why that happened. I think he was trying to get the ball to the opposite wing on a flare screen. Um, Oh, do you have you have this one. Okay. No, this is not that one.
Oh,
So this is an example of the kind of turnovers that he had in both this game against Boston, but multiple times against Philly that I think are just a result of I've got a greater scoring burden and like creation burden right now, so this is what's going to happen. He turns his back a lot on these drives, and like we pointed out with the one that created that Bruce above the break 3, he drives into the paint, turns around, tries to find somebody. He did this multiple times. Even in this game, he was able to find like Tim Hardaway Jr. on the opposite wing. But when you rely so much on this turning, you create like a blind spot for yourself as an offensive player and an opportunity for the defense to attack. And I thought Boston and Philly in the second half of that game did a good job of sort of capitalizing on that. And that's just the kind of thing I wanted to point out, not to, dog on Peyton. It's just, okay, you're doing shot creation now. And so it's going to get harder and harder as teams sort of start to read your movements, learn your tendencies. And this is definitely one of Peyton's tendencies right now. And he's going to have to figure out a way to, just be more careful with the ball in this situation. Try to either turn faster or try not to make it so obvious that that's what he's going to do. And it's almost always when he does this too, in terms of like speaking about it as a tendency, when he does this, he's looking to pass. Like he's not like trying to create a turnaround usually. Sometimes he does, but it's very much a bailout in a bailout situation. So that's just, something to monitor as the season goes on. If he continues to get these opportunities, will it look like this as he moves up the scouting report for opposing teams? We mentioned earlier he shot 6 of 7 from 3 versus Boston. I still don't trust the above the break stuff, even though he made them in the last 2 games. But he's become like very consistent in the corner. I think he's the best corner 3-point shooter in the NBA right now on volume. I need to double check
just
the number.
statistically.
Statistically, because I remember this coming up after the Mavericks game when he missed the game, the potential game winner. in that instance. So let's see here. I know at that point he was shooting over 50% from the corners, and he hasn't really been missing. So that number is probably about the same, unless somebody has gone like a crazy corner 3-point shooting stretch over the last like 10 games. Then uh, I think he's still the leader there, which is
Yeah. Well,
pretty
I was
crazy.
just happy that Pwat, he was just hitting his open threes from basically everywhere,
Yeah,
regardless of,
especially
like,
versus Boston.
yeah. And when he takes the pull up threes, I'm certain they're not going to go in. I much like him as better as like a catch and shoot player from three. But if he just gets the ball and he's standing there and he's open, he hit those, which was huge. Like, that's all you can ask for. Boston missed a bunch of open threes in this game, and we weren't. So that really helped us get the win. And I mean, I'm just hoping this 3-point thing from Pwat keeps up. Again, like, I still just want to see more. But yeah, are you seeing his stats on this corner three?
Yeah, I'm looking that up right now. If you want to keep, want to keep
Well, I
talking
mean,
about
I
it.
had. Let's see. Do we have another three? Pwat three. Yeah, I
So
mean, God.
Tari Eason is leading corner 3-point shooting for everybody shooting more than 2 per game, and I don't know if Peyton is at that just because of the rest of the season. It looks like he doesn't make that cutoff. But if I make it, I think if I make it 1.5, yeah, he's third in corner 3-point percentage, which is 52.7% for all players shooting 1.5 corner threes per game or more, behind Tari Eason and AJ Green, um, who are, Tari Eason has been on a ridiculous corner 3-point shooting season, but AJ Green is like a legit shooter. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, let's go to the lefty layup because I want to talk about Peyton's finishing, which has been significantly better in this stretch as he takes fewer one-handed dunk attempts. Frankly, that's like the number one variable in Peyton Watson's rim finishing is how many one-handed dunk attempts did he have in that game, and then kind of take the inverse of that. Really nice lefty finish off the Euro step in transition. Um, he's had some really nice right-handed layup finishes too, so I don't want to get that wrong. I kind of had a jokey question in here about like, does Peyton Watson need to accept he's a left-handed player? Because he's had so many good left-handed layup finishes this season, but he's also had really good right-handed ones. And I just trust the layups a lot more than I trust the dunks, which is crazy,
I know.
right?
It's like AG said in the podcast with Cam about how, people are just trying to figure out how to still just put the ball in the basket at this stage of their career. And by the time you're a
Yeah.
vet, you know how to do it. You have body control, you know what you can do. And I think Pwat's like still figuring that out because he doesn't quite know when he's going to be able to finish like these crazy tomahawk dunks, but he has this insane ability and it's like he's testing it out. But he has so much great length and he doesn't have to even jump that high like on these buckets where it's like just kind of get your hand in position and just put it right in. Like, don't give the defense a chance. And he's
I
been good
think
about that.
the issue the last like few years, like he said, they're still trying to figure out how to put the ball in the basket, is like he doesn't have like a great sense for like the touch around the basket. But he's got like, this is a player with like huge hands and like a lot of great length. And I do think that he's going to be more of a finesse below the brim player than an above the rim player for a variety of like athletic reasons that we've already talked about on this podcast ad nauseum, when it comes to Peyton Watson. And he just needs to like hone that and maybe like accept it a little bit. The like thing that still like drives me absolutely crazy is these one-handed dunk attempts, which we talked about last show, that were just like unnecessary in a lot of these situations. And even I think at the end of the this was a game with Jokic. What was the last game that they won with Jokic?
The Christmas
It
game.
was definitely like a close game. Was it the Christmas game? Yes. Okay. It was against the Wolves. Yes. He had this like really kind of anemic dunk attempt. And this was actually I believe it was a two-handed dunk attempt. against the Wolves in the clutch, missed it, and then Spencer Jones gets this huge putback in like a really big moment in that game. But you're like, oh my God, Peyton Watson should be thanking Spencer Jones for that, because he wouldn't have heard the end of it if not for if not for that play, because of like trying to do unnecessary things in like high leverage moments. Since Jokic has been out, he hasn't really been doing too much in those high leverage moments. And he, like, obviously the responsibility has gone like through the roof. So you could imagine situations where that would be the case. But other than some of these turnovers that are the result of trying to learn your your counters and like learning your own tendencies, because you might not even think about them very explicitly in that way until they're on a scouting report against you, right? Until someone's stopping it. That are, things that I'm sure he's going to improve upon, in the future. Yeah. Let's see. Other stuff about Peyton Watson. All right. So the step back middies have made a comeback. We don't have to go into the clips on that. Everybody knows what Peyton's step back middies look like. He had one over Hauser. And I just had a note here that Peyton is tall enough that learning to get to this shot and just rising and firing over smaller defenders, which will be on him, especially like in this game, he was playing the three because we were starting both. We didn't start AG, but we started De'Ron and Spencer Jones. So Peyton spent most of this game actually playing at the three because he had either like some combination of like Spencer Jones, Zeke Nnaji, Aaron Gordon, De'Ron Holmes on the floor at all times. And Boston is already like a tiny, tiny team. And we didn't see this kind of shot a lot, but he was able to get to it over Sam Hauser pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I was just going to show it really quick because why not? I mean, it's just something we never see from him, or we don't see a lot because Jokic would probably yell at him if he did this.
It's funny because it was the shot that we saw a lot his second year, and then like almost none at all last season, and then this season it's like we're seeing a lot of the floater, not so much of the step back.
Yeah, he was super confident in this game.
I'm curious about his approach on some of these drives. Like that would be like an interesting question to ask him, is like, what's the difference in like when you're trying to get to the floater versus the step back and that kind of. Maybe you don't want to say it because you don't want to put something in the scouting report, but I'd be curious to know like what the difference is for him, on these opportunities, because that's also the kind of drive like the one that you just showed that you could easily have seen resulting in a floater if he gets in a little bit deeper. But I think the intent was the step back there, so I'm just curious. You had another clip that you wanted to show about Peyton's offense here with the skip passes.
I just thought like even if he, we've been talking about him handling the ball and, his finishing and all that. But I mean, there was an interesting play that I had here where he could have gone for it, but just elected instead to try to pass. And because, I mean, he drew in like, 3 Celtics defenders are in the paint coming in on this drive. I mean, he's wide open. Garza's there and like in position, and he probably could have tried to still lay it up depending, but I mean, he's repositioning himself in the air and then looking to pass at the same time, which I thought was pretty impressive, and hit THJ, which was a good decision because we just talked about how amazing he's been from 3. And he had been doing this a lot in this game, and even on this one, just driving the baseline and then throwing it to Zeke of all people, who hit the corner 3 at the end of the third. So even Peyton just getting downhill and passing out of it was just something good to see as well.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in like a half court situation, because we've seen him kind of do this in transition his first couple of years. Not so much in the half court. Obviously, has a little bit more freedom right now as the Nuggets are like, how do we find ways to create offense without Jokic? But yeah, really good to see him be comfortable in that situation. Like Boston doesn't really have like the best perimeter defenders anymore. Like with Tatum out especially, and like I think the Tatum's perimeter defense is a little bit overrated, but he's really good on wings. Derek White has that increased burden, so it's really between him and Jaylen Brown, and both of them are like trying to carry this offense. So you're leaving the perimeter defense to guys like Hugo Gonzalez, Luka Garza, Peyton Pritchard. And I thought that between this game and the Sixers, he was really able, and I don't mean this to like denigrate him at all. It's really helpful to have players who can take advantage of bad defenders. Like, I love that because that's not necessarily something that we had consistently in the past. And who knows if we have it consistently now, but there's at least the possibility of that, right? Um, and then defensively, we got to bring up the steal on Jaylen Brown late. He also forced an offensive foul on Jaylen Brown in the clutch, which was really, helpful to helping Denver like continue to build the already pretty sizable margin that they had late in this game. But this one, I feel like, was the one that like kind of sealed it, where it was like, we're not going to let Boston come all the way back in this game. Just did a good job of like forcing Jaylen to go to another move and then disrupting that other move, right? And Jaylen Brown, his handle is what it is. He had 7 turnovers in this game, including an offensive foul. So it wasn't all live ball stuff, but this was definitely the one. And going the extra mile to dive for the loose ball and like secure it for your team, tapping it over to Zeke like that. That's the kind of thing that I would love to see more from every player on this team. Like, we do so much of like disrupting dribbles or playing passing lanes and doing all this stuff and then not necessarily securing the ball. That, like, I was ecstatic to see this possession.
Yeah,
Right.
he got up into Jaylen Brown's body on that one too, and he had been called for offensive fouls in this game. Like, I feel like they were kind of letting some of the contact go right there, but I was glad to see like them be physical with the Celtics on the perimeter when they can, and that's like what I was hoping Pwat would bring, like almost to a point of it being a specialty, but you still got to keep doing it consistently.
So just kind of on like just to wrap it up with Peyton Watson, we had a couple of questions at the beginning of the show about the question of should Peyton Watson start when everybody's healthy, like when Cam is back, should he be coming off the bench, that kind of thing. And also, should we trade Cam to, create both the financial and like minutes flexibility to like financial flexibility. Like, I want to be clear when it comes to the financial flexibility question with Peyton. They can pay him whatever they want. He's their free agent. They have his bird rights, whatever. It's the same situation, exact same situation as they were in with KCP a few years ago. The question is the financial will at this point, right? There's nothing keeping them from paying him whatever. And I don't think they should pay him whatever. I think they should pay him like, a reasonable number, because I want them to have like contract flexibility in the future, right? There's a difference between the financial concern in the immediate term and like building out the books for the next couple of years. Where are you at with specifically the question of when Cam comes back? Should Peyton be starting?
Over Cam?
Yes.
I'm definitely in the not starting him over Cam. And maybe I'm crazy. I still am higher on Cam. Like, I know maybe that's frustrating for fans because Cam struggled so much early on, but I just think he's so much more solid. Like, I hate to say it. And I just think he's a little more, like, his basketball IQ is there. It's more developed. Pwat has probably, I guess, a higher ceiling than Cam at this point because Cam's in the later stages of his career, getting hurt, things of that nature. But I don't think you can overreact to this stretch and just start Pwat and just give up on Cam completely. But it's definitely a question. I saw people talking about it last night, and maybe I'll get to that point where I will agree. I still just need to see a little bit more right now. Like, I kind of want to just keep them all, like keep Pwat, keep Cam, and just have that like versatility for like the playoff push. And just sometimes you want to go to Pwat if he has it. Sometimes go to Cam if he is hot on a shooting night, and like have more options to solve problems in the playoffs rather than just like making a decision right now because people are kind of asking these questions. But I'm glad I don't have to make the final decision on it because it's like an interesting one.
I generally agree with you. I don't think that starting Peyton is necessarily the right thing. In part because like the question isn't always who's like playing better individually. It's who's going to play the best around Jokic. And that's not to say that Peyton doesn't play well around Jokic. He has, but to be fair, like we've only seen Peyton like playing the four. Like one of the things I actually do want to see when the starters are back, and I know Adam Mares has been clamoring for this look, is like, what if Peyton started over Christian Brown? Christian Brown, by the way, making that a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's more of the question I was
played,
interested in. Yeah.
with the way that he's played, not just since the injury, coming back from the injury like 2 games ago, but how he's played to start the season, right? And unsurprisingly, Christian Brown looked like less than himself to start the season because he was going through protracted contract negotiations that kind of went long for, in my mind, no reason, given the number that they ended up like settling on. It didn't really like, it's like, if this was all you were gonna do, then you probably should have just extended him earlier. And so you end up with a like one of the slowest starts to a season that you've ever seen from a starting player, that wasn't injured in terms of like how he started the season. And then, getting the ankle injury on like a freak thing. Like I actually don't think it was related to like the condition he was in or anything. Like obviously like 6-week, like grade 3 ankle sprain, is not, like that was a freak thing. Comes back and it's like in the next game, he was just bad. Like a lot of it, we can skip to the Christian Brown part of this for the sake of this conversation. He had a lot of timidity in that game versus the Nets. He had a lot of timidity against the Celtics too. But the Celtics game was, I think, I don't know which was more concerning, because in the Nets game, he had timidity, but it wasn't like he at least stood out, but it was in bad ways. He was trying to make plays that he couldn't, including like he like drove almost all the way to the basket and then like kicked to the corner when the guy wasn't open. And then if you could bring up the missed floater against Boston, I want to bring this up as like a process thing to kind of talk a little bit about where Christian is like mentally right now. So he gets this, goes to flash middle, and then stops short because Luka Garza is in the paint. Like Christian should be trying to get all the way to the rim in this situation. Not stopping, like this isn't a short floater either. It's basically a step below the free throw line.
Yeah.
And then he gets blocked by Sam Hauser.
Yeah, it was a rough one. Like
that was white on white crime. And it wasn't committed by Christian Brown, which is like the worst kind,
Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad, and that was kind of that was kind of exemplary of his game yesterday. Other than that, he did make the 3 late in the game, the corner 3, which I have no faith in any of his threes, but particularly the corners. He just hasn't been good from the corners, even when he was shooting efficiently in the past. But like he really like didn't stand out in this game, and I don't know which is worse, when he's trying to make plays and can't, or him kind of disappearing. Like I talked about, like it's good to see guys like out there and like not necessarily just getting cardio, but that's kind of what it felt like with Christian. And let me look at the stat line. I'm sure he's not somebody like you always look at the box score and you're like, even when he's playing well, you're like, oh, when did he do that? And he did have 5 points, 2 assists, 5 rebounds, like a block, right, in this game. And so that's it. Two games back from injury, but the reason I'm talking about him like this is because he didn't look good before the injury either.
Yeah, right? Like we were already
otherwise I would just be talking about this like, look, he's just trying to reacclimate. It's just like AG, right? Where it's like, but AG's also older. But we know like AG is going to look a little bit more athletic than this by the end of the season, right? With Christian, you're just like, I need you to figure out a way to contribute even when you're not, your best athletically. And a lot of it, I feel like, is mental, because the timidity is just like a recurring theme in his career now, right? And it's becoming a bigger problem when he can't just kind of rely on the athleticism to make spectacular plays every like now and then, right?
Yeah. I mean, even before the injury, like you were saying, we were monitoring this, and when Pwat started the season, I was even like, I know it's too early to think about maybe putting Pwat in at starting at the 2 spot, even though we weren't even sure what the best position was for Peyton Watson, whether it was 4, whether it was 2. We were kind of playing him at the 4 more by necessity. But now, and then Pwat got hurt. He got that contusion, so kind of went out. So that kind of regressed a little bit. But now we have more injuries, and Pwat is stepping up to the occasion and really highlighting himself as a real guy in the league. I mean, he scored 30 points, which is just like something you don't see a lot, even though the NBA is a higher scoring game as of now, so it's not unheard of. But yeah, it's just, it sucks. I don't want to like think about the, the larger implications of this with like, did we pay CB when we should have played Pwat? I don't blame Ben Wallace at all for not extending Pwat in the offseason because Pwat hadn't proved anything yet. It's just like, this is where we are with the situation, and we got to figure out whether we want to keep him, trade him, whatever we want to do. I get why fans would be really mad if we traded him, because I'd rather like have him for the playoffs.
I mean, it would just be for
title.
financial reasons at that point.
Yeah.
I would be pissed if you just traded him and didn't get anything good back.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they would trade him just for financial stuff. Personally.
I want to talk about, we're going to skip around a little bit here because I want to talk about a player who's basically taken on the role of like Christian Braun in this time, just Spencer Jones, right? We talked about like Christian can kind of disappear in these games recently. I agree, Vyacheslav. As soon as Peyton Watson gets paid, his value goes way down. That's just how it works. Spencer Jones played 9 minutes last night, and we have 6 clips for him. Basically the same number as we had for Zeke Nnaji, who played 24 minutes, and we had those were clips across multiple games. Spencer Jones has an insane motor, and he has taken on the role of kind of like that do everything guy. And I wouldn't just say Christian Braun, because it's more like Christian Braun his rookie year or his second season, where it was just kind of like does a little bit of everything. It's more like what Bruce was to the title team at this point, minus the like high volume scoring, even in like pockets. Like Spencer just doesn't really do that. But I want to talk about his defense first. Let's go to the Jaylen Brown missed layup. I actually do know. He doesn't get credited with a block in this game, but he doesn't get a hand on it there, but stays strong. Again, Jalen's a power player. Don't get bullied by him. Force him a little bit further away from the basket and try to get a tougher finish there. He gets a good contest on it, and Jalen isn't able. The layup is short, right?
Yeah.
Let's go to the Jamal turnover, because this was excellent transition defense by Spencer Jones. Look at where this guy is on the baseline. Okay, and Boston has a 2-on-1, and Spencer is able to make it back in time to deflect the ball out of bounds so that Boston doesn't get an advantage situation there. And you know what happened next? Boston didn't score out of bounds on that play, so he saved probably at least 2 points on that possession.
It's like the magically timed Spencer Jones tips, like running back tipping that ball. In the other game, he tipped the ball out of the rim and sealed the game, kind of. Yeah, he's just like heads up player, game-winning player. Yes. Reminds me of AG in that sense.
Yeah, minus the talent.
Yeah, but it's still got time.
Right. Well, let's go to the offensive rebound, because it took me a while to find this clip because NBA play-by-play had the wrong clip here, so I had to find the shot that missed to get to Spencer like flying in for this offensive rebound. Denver obviously doesn't score on this possession. AG misses the 3. Spencer flies in, gets that rebound, kicks it to Tim Hardaway Jr. on the wing, who, that's a good closeout from Peyton Pritchard, forced Tim Hardaway Jr. inside the arc to keep him from getting to the shot that he wants to get. But, Tim could have made this. He didn't. Long floater. We hate those shots, but, he tried. But that possession was created because Spencer Jones came out of absolutely nowhere and, flew in for that rebound. There were 2 or 3 Celtics already in the paint. Mm-hmm. Like, not just in the paint, but at the position where the ball was going to go, right? Okay, you've got a clip here, a hard Spencer screen.
Oh, all right. That was that for Spencer. Let's see. Yeah.
I think
Yes.
I think I know which one this is going to be.
Yeah, I just liked this little creative. Sorry, I just missed it because I started the clip, but I just like any way to just get Jamal an open look, especially with our limited like resources. Yeah, and Derek White and people loading up on him. I mean, this is like a fundamental screen, of course, it's a flare screen, but Spencer is a bigger guy.
Right, but you like tripped Derek White, who's one of the better screen navigators in the league.
Just
right?
if you're screening for Jamal and getting him an open shot and you're setting a good screen and not getting an illegal screen called on you, I'm all for it. And I love Spencer being.
Even if you get an illegal screen called on you, I'm like, you know what? These refs just don't like us because they never call this on other teams.
Yeah. Yeah, and just a previous comment earlier from Light Chemistry, Spencer's like one of these OKC defenders. He's legit good, but I just like I agree where it's like that wing ball thing that I've been on for a while, where it's like you want, like if you had a team of 5 Spencer Joneses, they would do pretty well in the NBA. Like not like they'd win a ton, but they'd be pretty good.
I mean, they wouldn't be able to score.
But yeah. Anyway.
I will say Spencer Jones moves his feet exceptionally well for somebody with his size, which is why we've been able to put him on some of these smaller players. Okay, let's go to the help defense with Peyton one here. I believe Peyton gets credit with the block because I think he gets a 2-handed block on this by Jalen, but Spencer makes sure the ball doesn't even go up for the opportunity for this shot to just go in anyway. And just kind of gets it out of bounds. And it was his man, so that was really good help defense by Peyton. And Spencer just kind of makes sure his guy doesn't score. But I just love, like, he's, like I said, he only played 9 minutes and we have all these clips from him.
Him making his mark and like his presence felt, the old Malone saying.
I'm trying to remember, did he play against the Sixers or was he one of the guys that got the game off?
He did, because he had that like that game-saving tip out of the rim, in that game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. At the end?
Yeah.
Or like away from the rim.
Well, the ball was like, it was like he was going up for the rebound, and Embiid was, and he like hit it out. And then we were able to go seal the game.
I remember now. Yeah. I remember that. On the previous possession before Bruce scored. Right. So not the final possession.
I think that led to Bruce scoring.
Yes, the one before Bruce scored. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will say, if you could go back to that same clip, the help defense one. They get the stop here. But if we could just let it play out. The Celtics got us a lot in this game with with these back screens. So here, let's see, you've got Derek White ends up setting. He basically helps Spencer or helps Jalen Brown by
trying to clear the paint out for him.
Yeah,
Are you still there? I think she might have frozen.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. I'm just waiting for the clip to play.
Oh.
But the Celtics got us a few times in this game with these back screens to help Jalen Brown get downhill. And here, like, Derek White kind of doesn't even set it. He just kind of goes.
He was just kind of pushing our guys out of the paint. Like he was just kind of like trying to create a lane, but they got right back in the play.
It's like, guys, if he's ghosting it, you shouldn't move. Like you shouldn't be dislodged this easily. But like an example of when they did get us, if you go to the Jalen Brown short push shot, I wanted to make a point about how Denver's guarding these. Oh, if you could go from the beginning of the clip. So here you've got Sam Hauser sort of back screening Duran and getting him out of the play. And it's like, okay, that's tough because Duran's like a big and he's not used to navigating screens in that way. But I feel like in the past, Denver was just a lot more comfortable switching these types of actions to try and shut down things, to try and at least shut down the interior in part. Instead of trying to make everybody fight through screens to stay with their guy. And they switched a lot more under Malone and Ryan Saunders, who was the defensive coordinator in those situations. And I kind of wonder why that is. I will say last season, the switching was really bad because all our switches were really soft. Guys were like getting blown by like left and right. Um, and the help defense on the back was just non-existent, right? And last season was really bad for a variety of reasons with this team. But in the season prior, 23-24, when the team was executing at a high level, switching was kind of like the main way that they shut down teams like Boston and really threw teams off of their game in the clutch because we would like maybe not, depending on the scout, we would not do it all day or all game. And then in the clutch, we'd be switching and like really forcing these tough isolation possessions. That obviously last season, those same possessions turned into just blow-bys for layups, right? But the year before, the defense was a lot better, both on a one-on-one level and like as a team. And we don't really switch anymore. And where there have been lots of breakdowns, I feel like this season, again, where the team defense is not, at its best because guys are trying to fight through all of these screens. And I think like, I would just be curious to ask Jared Dudley about this other thing in particular. Like, there's lots of questions that I have for Jared Dudley, and I don't mean
We
it
need
in
him on
like
the
an
show.
interrogatory form. I genuinely just want like answers about this defense because even when they're playing well, I don't really understand what the objective is. Right. Um, and yeah, I would just be curious about like what some of the like defensive philosophy is at play here.
Yeah, I mean, it's still.
Mhm.
I mean, I know we're getting to halfway through the season, but it was a whole new defensive scheme for the most part. I mean, as much as a scheme can be new, I mean, these players are all familiar with all these defensive concepts. It's just a matter of when it's being employed, how it's being employed, what the personnel is, how well can they
Yeah.
execute. And on that play, that Holmes was in that, and he's definitely going to be probably, I would imagine, the most behind on being a heads up on what
Yeah.
Dudley wants defensively, but he'll get there.
And I'm generally of the opinion that it is perfectly respectable for a coach to be like, I'm not going to just abandon what we're trying to do until the guys do it better. If you do it better and it's still not working, then we can talk. But and right now they're trying to make the zone work. They're trying to get these man coverages down also. I would just be curious about like, is he like somebody that is like constitutionally opposed to switching, which is like an interesting position to take in like the 2025-2026 NBA. And I'd be curious like where that comes from and that kind of thing. Um, anything else you want to say about Spencer?
Just, I hope we give him a contract, a real contract.
Yeah,
I'd love him in the
right.
playoffs.
Curious about this foot soreness thing. I do hope he doesn't have to miss extended time for it because we will miss him.
Yeah.
He has the highest motor on the team, which is significant for us. All right, let's go to Duran. Last non-Jamal guy here before we spend our entire last segment on Jamal Murray, who's been fantastic. Duran Holmes has been playing incredibly well ever since he was injected into the rotation here. Let's go to the Jamal pick and roll floater. He's been playing really well, like with the other players. It never feels like, oh my God, Duran doesn't know where to be on offense. So this was a nice pick and roll possession that he has with Jamal. And he just kind of like screens his guy completely out of the way on this roll. It's like, okay, Kata, you're going to play the deep drop. Like, I'm just going to like create like an open snaking lane for Jamal. And then he gets to this floater, right?
Yeah, it's an aggressive
Jaylen Brown
type of
tries to come in
steal.
from the, yeah. And it's just, it's facilitated by Kata playing such a deep drop.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, I'll just get in front of you then. Like you're just giving me this space. So that's what I'll take. And yeah, that was like a good read by both of them. Let's go to the Jamal corner three, facilitated here by Duran Holmes. I think this was actually the possession you played where Spencer screens Derek White out of the
Oh,
way.
right. Yeah. Same.
And yeah, so this was a pass by Deron Holmes here to Jamal in the corner, and he just makes that read. And they were clearly running this play for Jamal to run off and run from off ball and use this like flare screen by Spencer to get open, and then Deron was able to competently execute a pretty easy pass to Jamal off of said flare screen. So that was good, right? It's like, okay, doing like basic good, competent, big things, right? Within this offense. The Peyton Watson corner 3, if you could go to that. I thought this was a good example of Deron's roll gravity. I don't know if this will be here with every team that Denver plays, because the Celtics are particularly invested in helping to protect the paint. Now, usually they're more comfortable switching, but when they have Ninish Keita on the floor, they don't really do that as much. And so they were playing more traditional pick and roll coverages here. And because Deron is so big, they're like, oh, shoot, like we've got like the Jaylen Brown has to come off of the corner, like completely ignore Peyton Watson in the corner, which he already was. Like he's like, I know I'm the low man here, and he's been ignoring Peyton Watson this entire game. And at this point, only 4 minutes had passed. But this was just another example of
and a great Murray
why it's helpful to have
too.
a big player who can kind of attract attention into the paint to create open passing lanes to guys, right?
And that's one of those things where it's like, you can't scout for this team, where you might realize you probably shouldn't have done that. Like, dare Deron to score in the post versus letting Pwat shoot the open 3 when he's been shooting it so well. But
yeah. All right, now a couple of like, here are some of the iffy things about such a young player.
Oh, also
and like a player, let's say
he did hit 2 threes early in the game, so shout out to that. Yeah.
Yes, he did. One off of like that pick and pop, which actually we're going to talk about when we get to the Jamal section. Oh, okay. I think both of his threes are in there actually.
Okay.
But on some of the iffy things about Deron's game right now, coming off the Achilles, first we got to go to the missed dunk, because I don't know what happened here. Like, there was nobody in his way. This is a pick and pop. He kind of does a little move on Ninish Keita and gets all the way downhill, and then just completely smokes this dunk. And I don't know why, besides he didn't have the lift. But if you don't have the lift, why not go for the layup? So I'm just kind of confused. He goes off of one leg.
It looks like his foot might have hit his leg right here.
Oh, like he might have gotten a little Bambi syndrome here.
Maybe.
And like,
I don't know. It was like he was expecting to get more lift. I don't know if Keita kind of got him off of his path, and he kind of, I think his foot hit his leg and he just didn't jump high. But
yeah,
that was a good spin move.
I saw that and I was like, sad face. But I liked the spin move. He looked very comfortable in that situation. And that's one of the things, he's not going to be the best rebounder at the 5. Not that we've had a lot of great rebounders. Well, the alternative is not a great rebounder either. But when he's as skilled as he is attacking slower bigs, he can kind of get into his bag a little bit more. And that's going to be really interesting to, continue to watch this month. Let's go to the CB turnover. So this was an example of, we try to go to Deron in the post on a mismatch. And I blame Deron for this turnover. So Deron and Sam Hauser, because this is like good defense, him like kind of jumping up with the arm here. But Deron needs to be stronger. Like he can't get he kind of gets stonewalled by Hauser a bit here, and then doesn't really get a great seal, and just that enables the ball being put in harm's way here.
Yeah, he got pushed off his spot the last second when CB was passing it.
And then the last one here is actually a block that he gets on Peyton Pritchard. But the reason I put it in the kind of negatives section is Deron has terrible position in drop here. And part of it's because it's another back screen. that turns into like, I mean, Hauser sets the screen and then ghosts, or like pops out, I should say, because he doesn't ghost it, because he does set the screen and then he pops out to three, which gets Duran out of position. But he's like completely ignoring Peyton Pritchard here to try and take the roller, because I guess Jamal's like, no, man, like you got to go there and I'll stay back and watch Hauser. So I was fully expecting to see a layup on this possession. But if you just keep playing, Duran ends up blocking the shot.
Duran planned this. He was like, I'm going to put my back to him, make him think he can score, and then I'm going to last second block him. I'm kidding. But yeah, amazing recovery from Duran. What else can you ask for?
And Duran ran down and hit a corner three immediately after this too. So two-way impact, you know. And my question for this section is just, why did it take the cultural annihilation of the Denver Nuggets front court to get this guy any playing time? Like, I'm genuinely, like, I picked out these bad clips. Some of them resulted in points for Boston, some of them don't. But struggling to find the level of error, even by like the standard of like rookies get no leash, that would make it so that this guy is justified in not playing. And like, I don't understand it. Like, I've been looking for it because I'm like, he must have looked horrible for them to have waited till Jokic, Jonas, and AG were all out for him to like deign to get literally any playing time. And then obviously AG is back now, and Duran gets more limited minutes in that game. I'm fine with that. Zeke was playing well, whatever. But we were in dire straits. Like, we started a 3-guard lineup against the Houston Rockets.
Yeah. I thought he'd look more stiff, more limited, less athletic, because of whether it was his injury or whether that's just how he plays. And that might justify why he wasn't getting time, but he's looked better than I thought he was going to look. And like,
yeah, way better than I thought he was going to look based on the situation.
Yeah, I mean, Poppin says, which positions can Duran play? I feel like we had been committed to playing him at the 4.
I mean, apparently against Boston, he can play the 5 for a few minutes and whatever.
Yeah.
I never really expected that, but like, he can probably play 4.5, like maybe play with a bigger big and maybe play with like a smaller big in situations where it's like AG is on there too, right? And kind of provide like supplementary front court production and size, right? Which we were in dire need of like a few weeks ago, and it was not enough to get him playing time. So I'm immediately skeptical of, you know, how they're handling Duran, but
at least
it's good to see him play well and like make the most. I'm glad he's making the most of the opportunities that he's been given. For sure, he was tearing it up in the G League, and you know, even like some of those games, I was like, okay, he's kind of gangly, and even like the minutes of the 5 are like very questionable, which you don't want to see against like G League competition. So I was very nervous about what he was going to look like once they finally gave him an opportunity in the NBA. But he's, like I said, he's been fine. Now watch him get completely destroyed by the Hawks next game. All right, we got to get to Jamal. We got 20 minutes left, and we have to talk about the guy who has a 35-5 assist to turnover ratio in his last 2 games. Jamal Murray, Dime King, 16-4 assist to turnover versus the Nets. And in this game, his creativity as a passer is what really stood out. And it really has been throughout this season as he takes on more of a, we've talked about his increase in his scoring, both volume and efficiency this season to start the season compared to prior starts. But I feel like his point guarding is also overall better, despite like the steep increase in the volume of self and other shot creation that he's had to do. Let's go to the interior passing. Let's start with the interior passing. If you could go to the no look interior, this is a bounce pass to Peyton Watson. And he basically had like 4 or 5 of like this exact pass in this game versus the Nets. So Jamal just driving, and then no look bounce pass. This was like a pretty simple one, but the no look like completely catches Day'Ron Sharpe off guard, and creates the opportunity for Peyton to get in there uncontested. Let's go to the interior bounce pass to AG. AG posts up, Jamal drives in, and I didn't even know how the ball got to him. I guess it was the behind the back from the left of Igor Demon here. And Jamal loves this sort of jump behind the back situation, this dump off pass on the baseline or to whoever's in the dunker. And we see it again in the next clip where he does the same thing to Peyton, the interior bounce pass to Peyton.
And Jamal's pump fake got 3 nets to jump in the air, which makes it an easy finish for AG.
Here. Okay.
Yeah, he kind of acts like he's going up for the shot, and then they all jump and
right.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the bounce pass to Peyton now. Just off a screen, and then Peyton gets downhill.
Off a screen, kind of gets the switch, and then same thing.
Very nice.
I'm glad Peyton finished that one. Pass. Good, strong, has to go across the basket to the other side, but a good, strong two-handed finish here. More two-handed dunks from Peyton Watson, please. I'm begging.
Yeah.
And then, Vyacheslav, AG was AG I thought was fine in that game. He's kind of the only reason they were in it. They kind of got demolished in the minutes he was off the floor. So when you say the effort was bad, it was everybody, but it was everybody minus a couple guys, and I would kind of put AG in there. I don't think his effort was bad. It just didn't stand out, All right, let's get to the Boston. 17 to 1, 17 to 2 assisted turnover ratio versus Boston. 17. Insane, which was apparently definitely, I think, the most for a game this season in terms of assists. But I think his stat line, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 17 assists, has only been achieved by 7 guys ever, including most recently by Magic Johnson in 1991.
That's crazy.
That is the company that Jamal is in right now. It is Jokic-like. All right, let's go to the pick and roll out of the trap. And I think this is the one you're thinking of with the turns into the 3 for De'Ron Holmes. So they're going to run pick and roll, and then Boston decides to trap, and De'Ron relocates with the ball, hits a nice little pull-up 3 out of the corner. And actually, maybe not a pull-up because it gets counted as an assist for Jamal, rightly.
And another heads-up play for De'Ron to relocate and not necessarily try to go do anything else. I mean, Jamal was stuck, so he had to do it, but good on him.
We talked about the number of clips we had for Spencer, but De'Ron, we had 3, 6, and now 7 clips for De'Ron, and he only played 13 minutes in that game, right? So he's just kind of got doing a lot of good things.
His instincts in the time that he's given. Pretty good.
All right, let's go to pick and roll with Bruce. So we ran a lot of guard to guard pick and roll for Jamal in this game. So nice little handoff with, that's very different than I thought it was going to be. Okay, we could just talk about this clip too. This was just a nice little handoff situation with Zeke. Jamal drives in, draws the help, and kicks to Peyton Watson in the corner, who is again being ignored by Jaylen Brown. Christian sets a nice exit screen for Peyton here. So a nice team effort to get this bucket. 4 different guys involved directly or 1 degree removed from getting this bucket together.
And Jamal just being aggressive, getting contact at the nail before passing out too, and just sets it all up. Makes it easy.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the pick and roll with Christian. Okay, so here Christian sets a nice high screen for Jamal. Oh, the video kind of skips a little bit. Nice high screen for Jamal. Nice little pocket pass, and Christian is able to finish this one, which is really nice to see because I think this is his first bucket of the game.
I think so. I think I remember that layup being okay, he made one.
He made one.
Yeah.
And the clip that I thought was going to play before this one was basically um, the exact same play, except Bruce goes for a floater off of the pocket pass and makes it. He was very comfortable shooting that floater off the move, um, which is interesting because he doesn't like when he knows that like he's going to take a shot on that possession as opposed to when he's running the pick and roll and like looking to make the reads and then tries to create it himself. He looked a lot more comfortable in that one. And so the question I was going to have is, does Bruce need to be just more involved in screening action given how he's guarded? But in this game, that's kind of like a silly thing to wonder because you watch and like Bruce is being completely ignored, Christian's being completely ignored, Peyton's being completely ignored. It really doesn't matter who's in the action versus off the ball in the corners and stuff. Boston's objective was stop Jamal Murray.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Denver got him 44 threes because of like stopping him and then like completely collapsing on Peyton Watson.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's all going to be on Jamal to handle that pressure, to pass out of it, make reads, score when he needs to score. But then these guys to capitalize off of these assists and the open space from Jamal. And like as much as we're crediting Jamal on these assists, like these other dudes are making these plays.
Yes, absolutely. Because when they don't make the shots, we're like, can someone get Jamal some help? Right. In this game, and even like to a degree in the Nets game, he got help, but like the energy from the team was so bad that like it kind of didn't matter. It was a lot of too little, too late from everybody in that game. All right, let's go to the AG cutting dunk. This was a nice high screen set. You could just play it from Christian Brown, and Jamal gets all the way downhill, draws the help, and AG just gets an open dunk. They called it a cutting dunk, but he's just kind of standing there in the dunker spot, just kind of positioning himself well. And it's like, once Jamal gets downhill here and Derek White has to help, Boston kind of has no chance.
Yeah, the screen is set at the half court line. Luka Garza's literally no chance, and Derek White has to help. Yeah.
I will say at the beginning of the season, he is unfortunately killing us for years to come. At the beginning of the season, it seemed like they were trying to set more high screens for Jamal. But in those early games, it would happen early, and then they would just go back to setting the screens where they normally do, which is like right outside the 3-point line or sometimes right inside the 3-point line to come off those handoffs from, like with Jokic and stuff. And it seemed like the guys were just like, well, this is what we're more comfortable doing. This is what we want to do because we want to be on the interior, create passing angles to Jokic inside. And I feel like, especially in this stretch, even before Jokic went out, when we're just missing so many guys, they're setting a ton more really high screens for Jamal and telling him he needs to take as many threes as he possibly can. And even in this game where he was getting doubled a lot by Boston, he got off 9 threes. It was 50% of his shot diet. Only made 3, but I thought that was the number of attempts is always significant for him, right? All right, let's go to the shot fake. This was another, I thought, creative pass for Jamal. Not like new or anything, because lots of guys make shot fake passes, but he's got Anthony Simons on him. Draws Neemish Katie. He's like, I'm going to blow right by Anthony Simons if you don't step up right now. And then he did. And Jamal makes the pass to Zeke, and Zeke makes them pay. Jalen Brown is like, again, ignoring Peyton Watson in the corner, and it doesn't matter. Right? Yeah. Like, look at the way that Peyton and Christian are guarded here. They're just not.
And that was a massive and one for Zeke, too.
And we were still able to create pretty consistent offense throughout this game. Like, I was box score watching live, and I was just like, are they just trading baskets? And that was basically it outside of 2 runs. The like really long run that the Celtics went on in the third quarter to take like almost a double-digit lead. And then the run that the Nuggets went on to start the fourth quarter to like basically like seal the game. Right.
And like not to like
outside of that, it was very much back and forth. Not
to use this play to talk badly about Duran, but Zeke did a little bit better to use his strength to back up Jalen, who was guarding him, but giving space for that pass, and using his strength to get in there.
He gets an inside seal there, and I don't trust Zeke Nnaji to like post somebody up, even if he's not trying to score. Like, I'm not going to set up that kind of play, which is what they were trying to do with Duran. But I do agree, like Zeke is a bigger, stronger guy than Duran right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's just been around more. He's
he can
played
get
more.
a good interior steal. It's just a matter of like, I'm glad the ball didn't just like slip off his hands out of bounds. Right? He's had pretty good, like pretty good hands over the last few games, which I think is like probably the biggest thing for him in terms of like the difference between how he normally plays and more recently is like he's just grabbing the ball. He's like gripping the ball and like it's going in the basket instead of out of bounds, right? All right, let's go to the toughest corner 3 pass.
All right, here we go.
I don't remember how this plays out, so we're just gonna watch it together. All right, so okay. Oof. This one was where he draws 3 guys into the paint off of a post up.
That was a crazy
and
pass.
They're still trying to like just like mask the passing angle to the corner for sure. I think Peyton is probably, let's watch this play out again, probably more open on this possession.
Yeah, there's no way.
No, they're just ignoring both again. It's again like they're completely ignoring both Christian and Peyton.
Yeah, this is the 1-3 that CB hit. And
it is the 1-3 that Christian hit.
Amazing wraparound baseline pass from Jamal.
He's talking shit after that shot too, which is hilarious given the game that he had.
Well, I think that was to our bench, maybe. Maybe he was talking to one of the players, but
no, I mean either way, it's just like tells you like the confidence of these guys and the sort of goldfish mentality when it comes to these mistakes. I mean, it's good to see because like Christian, like you think he's so much more impacted by like a lack of confidence than some of the other players are, that it's good to see him just kind of shrug off some of the other stuff. And hopefully that, translates in the coming games.
If anything's going to get him to not hesitate on threes, it should be playing right now with these guys in this situation who are all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
All right, let's go to the Celtics totally overloading. This play is one I also don't remember.
Double drag, like zoom action double drag for Jamal coming out of the corner and getting the handoff.
Yes, and then he starts to drive. Oh, here. Okay, I remember this one now.
Yeah, this was the big Zeke dunk.
So, okay, sorry. I thought the video wasn't playing because it keeps kind of stuttering on my end. But sorry. Yes, then he gets. This is another one where Zeke yells very audibly in the game after this dunk. That basically seals like, okay, we're gonna have a comfortable lead for the rest of this game. Because right now it's kind of like a 2.5 possession game, 7 points. Both teams have had 7-point leads at different points throughout this game, so you don't know if it's going to hold. But this was the one that sealed, like, no, Denver's going to lead for the rest of this game.
That was a great play, and there was a dribble handoff from Zeke. He's not just standing around. I mean,
yeah.
And then he just rolled and got that dunk.
And again, he caught the ball. Set. Like, that's the biggest thing. He caught the ball.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the other corner pass.
Pick and roll.
Okay, so this is the one where he drives all the way in and then kind of spit. Like he knows where that ball's going to go as soon as he starts driving, because you can just by the way that his driving angle here with Pritchard is like, okay, I'm not going up here. I'm going to turn around and all these guys are going to come with me. I'm going to take all you guys with me and create an open shot for Peyton. And then Peyton basically seals it. 13-point lead with 2.5 minutes left. It should never be close again. It does get close at the end, but they're able to pull it out.
Yeah, I mean, with how they've been leaving guys in the corner open and just caring more about Jamal, you get why they were going for that game plan. But, man, they got punished hard for that because Pwat really made them pay.
I mean, I get it because, again, like I said, like around the it's around like 110 mark is when they start just kind of fouling incessantly. The Celtics do. The other thing that you can do when you're down big in a game like this and you can't stop a team, you're like, they've been scoring on us, is we're down big. We're probably going to lose anyway. The only chance that we can give ourselves is hope they miss jump shots, not give them the easy interior stuff that they've been getting all game. And so they're like, here we go. Hope you miss. And, they didn't here. The last one was not an assist for Jamal, but it could have been if you go to the foul on Zeke late. This was a great read of a blitz off an ISO from Peyton. I mean, Hauser made it really easy with how early he blitzes. And now that I'm looking at it, like Jamal sees Zeke before he goes up for the shot. And I don't know if Hauser thought he was going to shoot here, but he got Zeke the ball. And I thought that should have been a dunk. But that was actually pretty good recovery by Jaylen Brown and Derek White, who is, again, ignoring Christian Brown in the corner.
Yeah, it really was.
And then they get the free throws. I think this is one that Zeke splits the free throws.
Right.
Thankfully, I don't think in the fourth quarter they had any missed both free throws possessions. I think they at least split each of the sets they got, which was pivotal, in a game like this.
Yeah, heads up from Zeke.
All right, last Jamal possession and last clip that we've got for the show here today. This is a midi to basically seal the game. Let's play the whole clip because Hauser almost forces a turnover. Derek White almost forces a turnover, and Jamal just gathers a ball that has a lot of chaotic energy, turns around, rises up, and fires with the clock winding down. And this was the one that I think sealed the game because at this point Boston's at 9 with a minute and a half left is not safe. It's comfortable, but it's not safe. Turning it back to 11 at this point, I think was what sealed the game.
Yeah. Pickett had a good
to the point where it's like Boston
too.
can make a run, but we're still going to be up in possession, and they're going to need a miracle.
Yeah, but yeah. Pickett had a good midi in that stretch too, where they were kind of coming back in, and we were just needing to get some buckets and hit kind of from that same spot. So that was great.
Yes.
Man, what a great wins.
Great wins, great games. Boston always gives us great X's and O's to talk about, which is why we had 45 clips to talk about this show. I think this is probably the most clips we've ever done in one show. Yeah.
And we haven't been shut down.
So, shout out to Boston, but also fuck Boston, don't let the door hit you on the way out of your own building.
Yeah.
If you guys have made it this far in the stream, we really appreciate you, and we hope you enjoyed the special treat of saving the best for last in Jamal's incredibly, creative passing displays over the last few games. If you do like our content, please remember to click the like button, the subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on socials. All our links are in the description, so you never miss a show. And always remember, the winning is fun, and losing sucks, which is why we don't pod after losses. But it's not on purpose.
See you after next win.